Happy St. Patrick's Day. I've got my green jumper on, I have my green snake, and today we're going to be making a game called Super St. Patrick. So this is a game we're going to create in Scratch. In Ireland today, all our usual St. Patrick's Day festivities have been cancelled, so unfortunately everybody's indoors, a lot of kids indoors rather than being outside. So this is maybe something that they can do, something Irish, something got to do with St. Patrick. So as usual, we have our step-by-step instructions which you can follow along, and I hope you enjoy it. So if you want to follow along with our step-by-step instructions, you can go to our website 123codes.org, and the project code for this project, for the Super St. Patrick, is Y772. So if you put that into the box up the top right here and click on Start Project, that will launch the step-by-step instructions for this project. Okay, so let's get cracking. So the first step in this project is to create a Scratch project. So in the little green tip box here, we've got the link to the Scratch website. So clicking on this will open up a new tab for the Scratch website, and then click on the Create button up the top left. And what this is going to do is open up the project editor for a new project. Okay, we don't need the cat sprite. So the cat sprite is added by default to all new projects, so we don't need it. So we're going to click on the little garbage icon here and switch back to our instructions. So the next step is we're going to upload the St. Patrick and Ireland sprite. So included with this step, there are two sprite files, a St. Patrick's character and an Ireland sprite file. So we're going to save these onto our computer and then upload them into our project. Again, in the little tip box here, it's got the instructions on how to do that, but you can just follow along what I do here in the video. So if I right click on the St. Patrick's sprite and click Save Link As, I'm going to save it. Choose my folder and save it. And then the same thing for the Ireland sprite. So right click on it, save link as, and save it in my folder. Now I've actually already saved these here, so it's just going to create a copy of them, but that's okay. So those two sprite files have been saved onto my computer now. So now I switch back into my Scratch project, and I'm going to choose to upload the sprites. So again, I'm going to choose the folder I had. So here we have the St. Patrick sprite. Click that and add that in. And then the Ireland sprite, which is a map of Ireland. Now the St. Patrick character is quite big at the moment. That's okay. We will shrink him down in a future step. Okay, so that is step number 2. I'll mark that as done. So the third step is to add the snake sprite. So this is a sprite that's in the Scratch library. Again, if you want to see instructions on how to access the library of sprites, you can just open up the green box there, but I will show you here. So we mouse over the Choose a Sprite button down here, and then we click on the magnifying glass. This is going to open up the sprite library. So there's lots of different sprites in here, but I'm going to search for the snake by typing in snake into the search box, and there we go. We see that our snake sprite here. So let's click on the snake, and the snake gets added in here. Okay, so that is the third step. So now the fourth step is we're going to position the island of Ireland so that it's in the middle of our screen. And we're also going to make it go to the very back. So at the moment you can see that it's above the St. Patrick's and the snake character. So we're going to put it to the bottom layer is what it's actually called. So I'm going to click on my Ireland sprite so I know I'm adding code to my Ireland sprite. Go into the Events toolbox and we're going to bring in a green flag clicked. Let's make it a bit bigger. And first of all, we're going to center it. So to center it in the screen, we're going to use the Go to XY block, and we'll say 0 and 0. So X0, Y0, which is right in the middle, the very center of the stage area. And then we also want to position it to the back. So we want to go into the Looks toolbox and bring in Go to Front Layer, but we'll change it to Go to Back Layer. So let's click on that. And as we can see, I'll show you again, it will go to the center and it goes to the very back layer so that the St. Patrick sprite and the snake sprite appear above it, which is the way we want it. So that is step 4. So on to step number 5. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make St. Patrick move around the screen. So we're going to program our arrow keys on our keyboards, the up, down, left and right arrows, to make St. Patrick move around to wherever we want him to go. So what we need to do is, first of all, we're going to add some code to shrink him and to set him up for the start of the game. So we're going to point him in the direction right, which is to start him off pointing right, because we might have played the game previously and he might end up in a different position. So we're going to start him off there. We're going to start him off in the center of the screen, again, X0, Y0. We're going to set the rotation style to left, right. And what this does is it prevents him going upside down when we move him around the screen. And we're also going to shrink him down to 15%. So let's add in these code blocks now. So I'm going to click on St. Patrick, so I know I'm adding codes to him, to that sprite. And let's start off in the events when green flag clicked, and then into motion. So we said we're going to point in direction 90. We're going to go to X0, Y0. Check the code and set rotation style left, right. And then we are going to shrink him to set size to 15%. So if I'm going too fast for you to follow along here in the video, just pause the video, add in the code, and then resume it. And that's probably the best way to do it. Or, as I said at the beginning, if you use our code Y772, you'll be able to get the step-by-step instructions and follow along that way. So let's just test this out. So test this block of code out. We're going to click on the green flag and we can see that St. Patrick goes to the middle of the screen, is shrunk down to 15% of his size, and his pointing direction 90. So I can actually show you, I can change his direction. So it's a bit different. It didn't work. There we go. So you can change him around, but when I click on the green flag, he sets him back to that way by default. Okay, so there are more steps now to step number 5. So that's just setting up St. Patrick. So now we want to be able to make him move around the screen. So we're going to program the up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, and right arrow keys on our keyboards to make him move around. So what you can do is you can add the code here for the up arrow, and what we're going to do is then duplicate it 3 times and then just change it slightly rather than add in the blocks each time. So it'll be a little bit quicker. So let's add another when green flag clicked, and then a forever block, and then inside that an if then block. Now we're going to go into the sensing toolbox and get the key space pressed and put that inside the condition of the if then. So we're going to check that the up arrow is pressed, and if it is, we want to point him in the direction up. So move my arrow up, so that's 0 degrees on the 0 to 359 degrees. So 0 degrees is up. And then we're going to move him 3 steps. So I'll just test that. So I'll click on the green flag, and when I press my up arrow, you can see he moves up. So again, rather than drag these in and build these up for down, left, and right, we're just going to duplicate this block of code here. So duplicate it 3 times, and then we're going to just amend it for down arrow, left arrow, and right arrow. So now we should be able to use the keys on our keyboard to move St. Patrick around. Now just quickly, the reason why I'm using this method of saying forever to check if the up arrow is pressed, and then put in the instructions for what to do for the up arrow, as opposed to this block here. So there's a block in events called when space key pressed, which you can change to be anything. So let's change it to when up arrow pressed, and I'm going to duplicate my pointing direction up and move 3 steps. So when I'm going to just break this off. So this piece of code doesn't run, and this will just run for up arrow. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to hold down my up arrow, and it kind of moves them kind of in a kind of laggy, kind of jerky way, as opposed to when I do it this method, he moves in a kind of smoother way. And that's just the reason why when I'm programming arrow keys, I normally put them inside a forever block in an if then. So if key pressed, and then put in my instructions, as opposed to using this block here because it's a little bit jumpy. But you can use it if you want. Okay, so I diverted a little bit there. So that's step number 5 that we've done. So we can move St. Patrick all the way around. So we'll mark that as completed. And we'll move on to step number 6. So we're going to make the snake's attack. So what's going to happen is we're going to create a snake every few seconds. We're going to use the clone block to do that. We're going to change the appearance of the snake. So we're going to make it just 3 different costumes in the snake sprites. We're going to switch between those, and we're also going to change the color each time a snake is added. We're going to start it in a random position on the screen, so it's just going to choose a random position. And we're going to point it towards the Island of Ireland sprite and then make it move towards it. So that's what we're going to do in this step. So we're going to add this code to the snake sprite. So first of all, we're going to shrink the snake, so it's 30% of its size. We're going to hide it. And then in a forever block, we're going to change the look of it by the costume and the color. We're going to wait a random number of seconds between 3 and 8 seconds. And then we're going to create a clone of the snake. So, and then we're going to program it what to do when it gets created. So when it gets created as a clone, so when a copy is created, go to random position, point towards the Ireland sprite. We're going to show it on the screen, and then we're going to make it move. So if it's touching Ireland, so when it actually gets in and touches Ireland, it'll move 0 steps, so it'll stop. Otherwise, it'll move 2 steps. So when it's not touching Ireland, it's moving 2 steps, but when it touches Ireland, it'll stop. So let's add these in. So click on the snake sprite to make sure you add the code to the right sprite. So when green flag clicked, I'm going to have to check these. So set size to 30% and hide. So size 30 and hide, and then go into the control toolbox and get a forever block. So we're going to change the color effect by 25 and then next costume. So back into looks, change color effect by 25 and after forgetting, super forgetful today's, next costume. So next costume. And then we're going to wait our random 3 to 8 seconds and create a clone. So into control, we'll get the wait and the create a clone, and then into operators to get the pick random. So we'll do 3 to 8 seconds. If you want to change this, any of these values you can, play around with it, see how it works out and what you think. So I'm just going to test this block of code by clicking on the green flag. So as we can see, the snake is hidden. It's going to be creating clones of it in the background, but we can't see them because they are all hidden. So we need to add in this next block of code. So into control, when I start as a clone, so each time a new clone, a new copy is created, whatever I put under here will run. So go to random position and point towards Ireland. So you'll notice the color coding on the blocks corresponds with the category here in the toolbox. So I can see that the blue corresponds to the motion. So that's how I know. So go to random position and point towards the sprite of Ireland. Then we're going to show it and then use a forever block. So show. So let's just run this. You'll just see they shouldn't move, but they should start appearing around the screen. Here I can make it go faster. Let's do 1 to 2 seconds. You can see every 1 or 2 seconds a new one will appear. It's got a slightly different color, different costumes. So that code is working. We'll change this back to 3 to 8 and go back in. So we're going to put in our forever and then our if then else. So into control, forever. So forever, keep on checking if, and then into sensing, if the snake is touching the sprite of Ireland, then we do not want it to move. So move 0 steps. Else, if it's not touching Ireland, then move 2 steps. So as we can see, the ones created now, again, I'll change this so they just for our test, so we can see them getting created in different positions and moving in until they're touching the sprite of Ireland. So that all seems to be working. Okay, so we'll mark that as complete and move on to step number 7. So step number 7 is to banish the snakes. That's hard to say fast. To banish the snakes and score points. So finally, we're going to add some code to banish the snakes and score points. So we're going to create a variable called score, and we're going to set the score to 0 at the beginning. So we're going to add some this block into this group of codes that we've already added, these blocks. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in some codes to the snake sprite to detect if it's touching St. Patrick. So if we make St. Patrick bump into the snakes, we're going to get a point each time he does that. And we're also going to make the clone delete to make it disappear. So, okay, so let's create our score variable. So, let's just type in the name of our project first of all. So if you don't have a Scratch account, you're not able to save projects. If you do have a Scratch account, then you are. So it is a good idea to create a Scratch account. You do need an email address, so best to maybe ask one of your parents to help you with that. Okay, so we're going to create a variable. So let's go into the variables toolbox and we're going to click on the make a variable button, and this brings up a box asking us what we want to call it. We want to call it score. So what a variable is, it's something that stores a value. So if you take in a game, you know, your score starts off at 0, and as you go through the game and you get points, your score is added up. The variable remembers what your score is. So that's an example of what a variable is. Okay, so we've created our variable. It's displayed on the screen. You can tick off the tick box here if you don't want it displayed on the screen, but we do. It's a score variable, so we do want it displayed on the screen. So we're going to leave it up there. And we said we were going to add some codes to the St. Patrick sprite first of all. So we're going to say set score to 0. So at the beginning of the game, we want to set score to 0. So at the start of the game, it's 0. And then we're going to add some code to the snake sprite to detect when it touches St. Patrick, when it crashes in, when St. Patrick hits into a snake. So we're going to get first of all, click into the snake sprite, and then we're going to go into the control toolbox and get an if then. We're going to put it inside the forever block here, but underneath the if then else that's already in there. So just be careful when you put this in. You know, sometimes you can put it inside the if by accident, but we want it to go underneath. If you just move slowly, before you drop it in, it'll actually show you a shadow of where it's currently targeting. So that's where we want it, inside the forever, underneath the existing if then else. So we want to detect if it's touching St. Patrick. So into the sensing toolbox, get a touching block and put it inside the condition of the if then. And we're going to change that to St. Patrick. So if it's touching St. Patrick, change score by 1 and then delete this clone. So into variables, get the change variable and change it to be change score by 1, and then into control and delete this clone. So let's see if this works. So select 1 to 2 seconds, click on the green flag, and when I crash into a snake, so it's gone up to 1, 2, get him, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So we can see that that's working. I can crash into the snakes and I get a point each time. Okay, great. So again, if you don't know how to create a variable in any of these green tick boxes, it'll kind of show you how to do them. So just open up those. So let's mark number step number 7 is complete. Now we're going to add a sound effect. So just to make it a little bit better, so basically what we're going to do is when we press on the space bar, St. Patrick, we're just going to flick out his staff at the snakes, and we're also going to be playing a sound, a whiz sound. So this is code that we're going to add to the St. Patrick sprite. So click on St. Patrick, and we're going to get when space key pressed, and we're going to add in a sound. So we're going to do a start sound block. So the difference between a start sound block and a play sound until done is the start sound will run this code. It'll start the sound, but then it'll also run any code you put underneath it straight away. The play sound block, what it does is, or the play sound until done, is it plays the sound until it's done, and the next code blocks won't be run until the sound is finished. So that's not what we want in this scenario. We want it just to play the sound and then to do the whatever instructions we put underneath, which are to switch the costume to hit. So I'll just quickly show you. There's 2 costumes. There's a normal costume, which is holding his staff, and then there's a hit costume, where he kind of flicks it out. So we're going to set it into looks. So set his costume to hit. We're going to wait. We're going to wait 0.3 of a second, and then we're going to set the costume back to, where is it? Back to normal. And I haven't selected the sound yet, but I'll just show you. You can see the staff just being hit out there for 0.3 of a second. It just flicks between them. Okay, so let's get our sound. So when you add in a sprite from the sprite library, it normally has some sounds already added to it. So the snake one has a pop sound. But when you create your own sprites or you add in kind of custom sprites, they often don't have any sounds, or I don't think they'll ever have sounds set up automatically for them. But that's okay. It's very easy to add them. What you do is you just click on the Sounds tab up here, and then put your mouse down over the Choose a Sound button here. So you've got different options. You can upload a sound, you can choose a random sound from the library, or you can even record your own sound if you have a microphone on your computer or a laptop. Most laptops do have microphones, so you should be able to do that. But for this game, what we're going to do is we're just going to choose a sound from the sound library. So there's lots of different sounds. When you mouse over them, they will play, as you can see there. You can search for sounds by typing in a name, or you can click on any of the categories here. So what we are going to do is choose the whiz sound, because it's a pretty fun one to use. So back into our code, we should be able to choose the whiz sound in the start sound block. So now when I press my spacebar, it'll flick it out, but it'll also play that whiz sound. So I can move them around and get the snakes that way. So that, I think, is the end of the instructions. Yeah, so the last one is, do you have any ideas of your own for the game? So once you've finished the game, I mean, you can go around and play it, but then you can think about any ideas you might have to actually improve it. You know, normally in gameplay, you might make it difficult, more difficult as the game goes on. So you might make the snakes maybe move around a little bit more, and make them move faster. Or you could maybe, you know, put in different types of characters that might be coming along, or make them move away from St. Patrick. You can even make them bounce around the screen. We've lots of different projects on our website. So if I just go to the home page here, so we've lots of different projects that show different pieces of code of how to you know, bounce balls, move them around. So it's often you can take ideas from different games and go in, look at the code, and then use that code in whatever your current project is. So I hope you enjoyed that project. I hope you enjoy playing that game. And I hope everybody has a happy St. Patrick's Day.